The golden glow of the evening sun spilled through the tall glass windows of Hamilton's Prime, one of the most exclusive restaurants in downtown Chicago. Inside, the air hummed with soft laughter, quiet jazz, and the clinking of crystal glasses. Wealth hung thick in the air, the kind of place where a single meal could cost someone's paycheck. Her steps were careful but proud. She wore a neatly pressed gray coat, her silver hair tucked into a low bun, and a small purse clutched firmly under her arm. The hostess, a young woman with a practiced smile, glanced her way, then did a quick double-take. Something about the older woman's quiet grace stood out, but not enough to erase the flicker of hesitation in her greeting. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes," the woman replied softly. "Under Holloway. Mrs. Ruth Holloway." The hostess scrolled through the screen, nodded curtly, and led her to a table near the back, close to the kitchen doors, far from the city's glittering skyline. It wasn't the kind of table given to their usual VIP guests, but Mrs. Holloway didn't object. She simply smiled, thanked the hostess, and sat down. Moments passed. Then minutes. Her waiter, a young man named Todd, walked by twice. Once to refill another table's drinks, once to deliver an appetizer, but he didn't stop, not even to offer water. When he finally did, his tone was clipped, polite only by technicality. "Sorry for the delay. We're short-staffed tonight. I'll be back when I can." Mrs. Holloway nodded gently. "Take your time," she said, her voice calm and patient. But across the room, others began to notice. Tables seated after her were already being served drinks and appetizers. A couple whispered quietly, eyes darting between Todd and the woman he seemed to ignore. Mrs. Holloway, however, remained composed. She folded her hands neatly, her gaze steady. This wasn't new. Disrespect, she'd learned, often wore a smile. After another 15 minutes, Todd returned, tray in hand. He paused beside her table, glanced down, and asked with a hint of irritation, "Still deciding?" Her lips curved in a small, polite smile. "I'm ready to order whenever you're free." Todd gave a half-hearted nod and turned away. At that moment, from across the room, someone else had been watching. A man in his late 30s, seated near the center of the restaurant, had paused mid-conversation. Dressed in a tailored suit, his expression was unreadable, but his sharp eyes never left Todd's movements. His name was Marcus Holloway, and the woman Todd had been ignoring was his mother. He didn't intervene immediately. Instead, he observed the way Todd's friendly smile brightened for certain guests, but vanished when approaching his mother's table. The subtle shift in tone, the careless delay. Marcus had built Hamilton's Prime from the ground up. Every chair, every dish, every staff member, hand-picked. The restaurant was his pride and his legacy. And right now, watching his mother being treated like an inconvenience in his own establishment felt like a betrayal. He leaned slightly toward the floor manager, Dana, who stood nearby. "Watch table 9, he said under his breath. "Let's see how long it takes him." Dana nodded nervously, sensing the tension in his voice. Minutes passed. Mrs. Holloway's patience never wavered, but the atmosphere in the restaurant began to shift. Conversations softened. Diners who had noticed the delay were now exchanging uneasy glances. Finally, Mrs. Holloway raised her hand slightly as Todd walked by. "Excuse me," she said, her tone gentle but firm. Todd turned, annoyance flickering across his face. "Yes? I'd like to order now, if that's all right." His jaw tightened. "I'll be with you in a minute," he muttered, already walking away. That was it. Marcus rose slowly from his seat. The quiet authority in his movement made heads turn. He crossed the floor, stopping just behind Todd, who had started laughing with another table, completely unaware. "Todd," Marcus said calmly. The waiter froze. The laughter at the table died instantly. "Mr. Holloway," he stammered, spinning around. Marcus's voice was low, but carried easily across the room. "I've been sitting here for over half an hour, and I've been watching you ignore that table over there." Todd swallowed hard, his eyes darting toward the elderly woman, then back at Marcus. I didn't realize—" "That's my mother," Marcus interrupted. His voice didn't rise, but it hit harder than any shout. "The woman you've dismissed, the one you couldn't find the time to serve." The entire restaurant went silent. Even the piano player froze mid-note. Todd's face turned pale. "Sir, I didn't mean—" "No," Marcus said sharply. "You didn't think. You didn't care. And everyone in this room saw it." Dana stepped forward quickly, her voice trembling. "Mrs. Holloway, I'm so sorry. Let me take your order right away." But Marcus raised a hand. "No, Dana, this isn't about the order." He turned back to Todd. "This is about respect, something that should never depend on the color of someone's skin or the clothes they wear." Todd stood speechless, his apology caught somewhere between guilt and fear. "Take off your apron," Marcus said. "You're done for the day." The waiter hesitated. Marcus's stare didn't waver. Slowly, Todd removed his apron, set it on the counter, and walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft thud that echoed louder than words. Marcus turned back to his mother. For the first time, his stern expression softened. "You all right, Mom?" he asked quietly. Mrs. Holloway smiled, her eyes warm. "I'm fine, son. You handled that well." "I should have stepped in sooner." She shook her head gently. "No. Sometimes it's better to let people show who they are before you teach them who you are." The tension in the restaurant melted slowly. Conversations resumed, quieter now, more reflective. Patrons who had witnessed the scene looked at Mrs. Holloway with newfound respect. Later that evening, as the restaurant emptied and the staff gathered for a brief meeting, Marcus addressed them calmly. "Tonight was a reminder," he said. "This restaurant isn't just about fine dining, it's about dignity. Every person who walks through those doors deserves respect, no exceptions." The room was silent. Every staff member listened, the weight of the evening settling in. When Marcus turned back to his mother, she stood near the window, gazing at the city lights. "You built something beautiful here," she said softly. "Now make sure it stays that way." He smiled faintly. "I will." As they walked out together into the crisp night air, the glow of Hamilton S. Prime reflected behind them, a place forever changed by a quiet woman, S. Grace, and her son S. courage to stand up for what was right. Sometimes justice doesn't need anger. Sometimes it only needs someone brave enough to say, "That's enough."